Hi, this is Chris with GospelProgressionsUniversity.com. One of the most used intervals in churchy music is the tritone. Like some preachers like to say, let me just lay some groundwork here. A tritone is simply two intervals that are three steps or three whole tones apart. Hence the name tritone or three-tone. So if we started from C, we go a half step or steps up rather, we ascend three whole steps. C to D, one step, D to E, two steps, and then we go from E to F sharp or G flat. Those are three steps. Here's your tritone. Now, what if we took this further and played three steps from F sharp, G flat? So we have here our G sharp, or G flat, F sharp. So 1, 2, 3. So we land on C again. What does that tell us? Well, it tells us that we played exactly half an octave, but more importantly, the interval is symmetrical. Meaning that it doesn't matter where we start, we end up playing the same distance between the intervals, repeating the pattern ad infinitum. Let's take this another step. Instead of playing three steps away from C or F sharp, G flat, what if we played just three half steps from C or F sharp, G flat? So 1, 2, 3, we end up on E flat from C, and from F sharp, 1, 2, 3, we end up on A from F sharp, G flat. We have this very dissonant 4-note chord coming from this scale I'm about to show you. Altogether, we just formed the C diminished 7th chord. So relative to C major or C, we have C, E flat, G flat, and A. We have our 1, our flat 3, flat 5, 6, or double flat 7 if you want to call it that. Now bear with me, I'm going somewhere with this. We have a symmetrical chord or intervals or spaces in between notes. In other words, we have exactly the same distance between each note no matter where you play it on the keyboard. A good way to remember the diminished 7th chord is to look at it like you're playing the first two notes of a minor chord. Ascending the keyboard, E flat is a minor third from C. So C to E flat is a minor third. E flat to G flat is a minor third. G flat to A is a minor third. And A to C is a minor third, and so on. When we invert a major chord like C, C, E, G, whatever inversion you play, it's still the same chord structure, C major. However, what makes the diminished chord so special is that all the intervals or spaces in between the notes are a minor third apart. When we invert C diminished, our first inversion gives us an E flat diminished 7th. Our second inversion gives us F sharp or G flat diminished 7th. Our third inversion gives us A diminished 7th. So what I'm about to do now is open your understanding. This chord has its own scale. And unlike the major scale, where it has 7 tones, the scale where the diminished chord comes from is an 8-tone scale. And surprisingly enough, it's called the diminished scale. This one incredibly powerful scale has only 2 modes, easy to remember. Mode number 1 is the whole half diminished or fully diminished scale. So your whole half diminished, fully diminished scale would sound like this. Whole step, half step, whole step, half step, whole step, half step, whole step, and half step. The second mode, mode number 2, is the half whole diminished or dominant diminished. So we have half step, whole step, half step, whole step, half step, whole step, half step, whole step. Now that's it. Remember, the diminished scale is only one scale with 2 modes. Now here comes the secret, everybody. When we play both modes of the diminished scale, whole half and half whole, we've just played the diminished scale of all 12 keys. Hashtag mathematics. Now, we know what the scale and the modes are. Let's go make some music. Let's concentrate here only on the second mode of the diminished scale. Okay, so remember. If we look closely, we see there's at least one major chord in the second mode of the diminished scale. With a little rhythm and imagination, we can do something like this. You You see how that works? So we see that most of the pentatonic scale is inside the diminished scale to get a nice churchy bump going. Notice the fidelity to the diminished scale. I didn't leave the diminished scale, the second one, the second mode at all, playing that. Now, here's another example. And now, what about when the preacher starts to hoop? You know how that goes, right? It's the same thing. You're playing the diminished scale, the second mode of it. The reason why, because we have that major chord. Here, it's dominant, so it works with church music. This is largely why a lot of people get tripped up whenever they play gospel music or church music. Whenever we hear the diminished scale or the second mode of the diminished scale, that is what gospel music or church music largely relies on, okay? Because when we look at it, the first part of it, the first half, all right, we have major key tonality and we have minor key tonality. So when we hear a tonic or the key center, people are not really sure where it goes. So they kind of play both, and they're right. In either regard, it doesn't matter because you're playing these things that come from the diminished scale. So we learned that the diminished scale is symmetrical because the notes repeat with the same number of intervals. We also learned about the diminished scale and its two modes, whole half and half whole. Thanks for watching. If this video has helped you in any way, smash that subscribe button for more content. You can download the LMS file, the chord chart, the video, all for free, and other free resources at gospelprogressionsuniversity.com.